how to speak English confidently.
So when it comes to speaking English confidently, I approach this from really the same position as all of you guys who are trying to speak English, right? I'm also a student of a second language. I would go and I would talk to somebody new. You might sound like a clown, but embrace the thought that you sound like a clown. And the more you embrace that thought that you're making mistakes and sound like a clown, those are your opportunities to grow and get even better.
So let's start our podcast with Mr. Beau. Yeah, how are you, Mr. Beau?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you so much. It's a great honor to have you.
Oh, thank you. I'm just glad to be asked. And I'm
Thank
glad
you.
to help anybody who kind of struggles. And this area here, being confident is, yeah, it's something I talk about all the time. So when it comes to speaking English confidently, I approach this from really the same position as all of you guys who are trying to speak English, right? And you think, well, how in the world am I coming at this from your same position? And the reason is because I'm also a student of a second language. So, for example, I've been working on speaking Spanish as my second language, and my whole life is in Spanish outside of what I do for Cambly and all of these things. And so I struggle the same way that you guys do, right? And when I struggle, I kind of pay attention to that. And when I think about speaking instead of saying English, I'm going to say second language, because this could also benefit you if you want to pick up. Maybe you decide, okay, yeah, I like that I'm speaking English, but hey, I want to pick up French or Chinese or Spanish or whatever too. So there's two main things that I think of when I think of being confident and working on my confidence, right? One of the things is really kind of probably the obvious way, right? The way that you get confidence is by doing things more. Like if you are afraid of something, the more that you go do it, eventually that thing kind of becomes boring, right? That's kind of your goal. You want it to be a little boring. You want it to be a little mundane, because those boring and mundane things, they don't scare us. They don't make us nervous,
Yeah.
anything like that. So then the way that you can do that is just trying to find a way to practice, right? And I know sometimes that's easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so from there, but the more I practice and the more I can change my subjects, and I've been talking to native speakers, and I've been talking to native speakers about many different subjects. Okay, that can build some confidence, right? But then we're probably thinking, well, what do I do until then? Right? Because I'm still kind of stuck here. I still, every once in a while, I need to go take that exam. I need to go to a meeting. I need to whatever, right? That is. And I really noticed this with myself. I would go, and I don't know if, you guys feel this way. I think probably do, but I would go and I would talk to somebody new in Spanish, right? And all of a sudden, I would get super nervous, really, really
Yeah.
nervous. And all of a sudden, all of my Spanish, my second language, it would just fly out of my head, right? And I don't have any there, and I feel like I'm back in primary school, elementary school, whatever, and I feel really stupid. I don't feel very smart. I feel very inadequate, and I don't know what to do, and all these things. And I think a lot of people feel this way, because when I started to feel this way, now I have an advantage. right? I'm talking to language learners all the time. So I took this idea and I started asking all of my students, hey, do you guys, struggle with this too? And every time I talk about, okay, I go to talk with somebody new and I'm a little nervous, I'm stressed, and all of
Yes.
my all of my second language, it kind of flies out of my head and I feel like I'm back in elementary school. Everybody kind of laughs a little bit, right? Everybody laughs because they've all experienced the same thing, the exact same thing. Because you go to talking, I don't have anything there, you know.
Yeah.
So then, what I noticed, and I was really surprised, because when I took this question to my students, I thought it would be maybe 20%. It would be a small number. Most people are confident, more confident than I am. I'm not very good at what I do. You hear the, this is what everybody tells themselves. Here's the great thing, and you could take some comfort in this, because when you struggle this way, you're normal. Because
Mm.
when I talk to these people, it wasn't 20%, it wasn't 50%, it's like 90%, almost
Wow.
100%. Yeah,
Wow.
everybody feels this way.
Yes.
So when you go to talk to somebody in English and you have that whole thing, you don't know what, you're losing your words, you're completely normal. You're not dumb, you're not inadequate. Actually, you think about this, you're speaking in your second language to someone who's speaking in their first language. Who's smarter? Who's doing the more difficult thing?
Yes.
You are doing the more difficult thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like you're trying to. We have this expression, like you're trying to do this thing with one hand tied behind your
Yeah.
back, right? It's the same thing. You're doing this at a disadvantage, right? That means what you're doing is an amazing thing,
Yeah.
right? So since I realized that it's such a large percentage of people struggle the same way, I I started talking to. I have students that are psychology professors. Some are psychiatrists. Some are this kind of stuff. So we have these discussions to figure out. And what I realize is I have this hypothesis is that this is a physiological thing a little bit.
Hmm.
Don't want to bore you too much with it, but basically what happens is we have upper level thinking and we have lower level thinking, right? Our upper level thinking, this is where we keep our math, our science, other languages, all of these kinds of things, right? The lower level thinking, this is about survival. This is how we get scared. We know how to keep ourselves alive, right? We've had this since we were cavemen, basically, right? So
Yeah.
when we get nervous, it's a biological response, is all it is. We get nervous and this upper level thinking, it flies away, right? Maybe a test of this is if you get nervous, try to do some math. Probably hard to do the math too, right? It's the same thing. So
Yeah.
then, okay, it makes sense. I'm getting nervous. I'm having a biological response here, and I lost my second language, right? So
Yeah.
this is what, a lot of times we have more of our second language available to us, that we just need to get access to it. And if we could just get access to that in there, then okay, I can start to talk more. And as I talk more, like I said before, the more I talk and the more I do this thing, I'm not nervous anymore because it becomes boring.
Yeah.
So I have to figure out a way that I can control my biological response, right?
That's nice.
The way I've started to do this, it works for me, and I've been telling all of my students about this, is I work on my breathing. I work on my stress control, right?
Yeah.
And what I do is, if I know that I'm going to be in a stressful situation, it could be I need to talk to my boss, I need to talk to, somebody important, or maybe I just need to talk to somebody new, whether they're important or not. It doesn't matter what that thing is. But if I know that I'm going to be in this moment, or I'm going to have this moment, before I have that moment, I will try to get by myself for 5 to 10 minutes, right? Whatever I can do. Get to a quiet place. Maybe if it helps, kind of turn down some lights, all that kind of stuff. Turn off the phone. Don't look at your phone. Don't any of that kind of stuff. And then I just do some controlled breathing, right? Literally in 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, out 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds. And I do that for 5 minutes or so. Probably doesn't even take much more than that. And what I'm doing is I'm slowing down my breathing. And as I slow down my breathing, what happens is my breathing, it's connected to my heart, right? And what happens when we're nervous? Our heart is going, our heart's going crazy, right? And then
Yeah.
because our heart's pumping so much, we're feeling like this, we're feeling all anxious and but if I can slow down my
Yeah.
breathing, all of a sudden, what happens? I can start to slow down my heart, right? Just a little bit, right? As I slow down my heart, some of that feeling of anxiousness, anxiety, nervousness, it starts to kind of melt away a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And as that melts away, some of my upper level thinking, what does it does? It starts to come back, right? Well, there's one more thing we need to do in the midst of this. And we kind of need to distract our brain just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, okay, the human brain is amazing. And it's really, really creative, super creative. So the way it's creative is it will tell us all of these crazy things, So they say, you know what, if I go and I speak English to my boss here, I will accidentally say the wrong thing and he will fire me and then I will lose my job, I'll be homeless and I'll die, and then who's going to care of my kid? And none of those things are going to happen. Right? We there's a word for this. We catastrophize. Right? So then I need to take and I need to distract my brain. Right?
Yeah.
So the way I distract my brain while I'm breathing is I focus on my breaths. Literally, and this feels ridiculous as you're doing it, but it works. Is as you're breathing, you're telling yourself, breathe in, hold, breathe out, just like this. And it's enough. It's keeping your brain busy to where you can get rid of the crazy thoughts. Don't worry that you have
Yeah.
crazy thoughts, because we all have them.
Yeah, it's a great idea, in fact. But I have a question.
Tell
In
me.
fact, as non-native speakers, we have the fear of judgment when we speak to native speakers. So
Sure.
how can I get rid of the fear of judgment when I speak English?
Yeah, sure, of course. The only way that I've found that you can get rid of the fear of judgment, this is going to maybe sound strange, I don't know, but embrace the fact that you may sound like a clown.
Yeah.
You
Uh-huh.
might sound like a clown, right? You might sound terrible, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? Instead of being afraid of that, embrace it, right? Because again, this is what I'm saying. I was saying this before. This judgment, you're talking to a native speaker, and all of a sudden you feel like you're not very smart and all this stuff. But what are you doing? What you're doing is actually more difficult than what the native speaker is doing. So then the
Yeah.
native speaker has no place to judge, right? It's kind of like, okay, if you want to judge me on my English, well then let's start speaking Arabic then, right? How well is that native English speaker going to do when we switch to Arabic? Probably pretty poorly, right?
Yeah.
Probably worse than your English. So
Yeah.
we just move on. And you know what? Here's the thing too. If you hear somebody speaking Arabic, what are you going to think? You're going to think, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they're speaking Arabic so poorly." No, actually you're going to think, "Wow, I'm actually thank you. Thank you for trying to speak speak Arabic, right?"
Right.
A lot
Yeah.
of people, like people who were kind of a little bit more educated and connected and all these kinds of things. I'm saying not people who are ignorant, but they kind of understand that what you're doing is difficult, and if they really think about it, they're probably thankful that they're having that conversation in English rather than, a very, very broken conversation in Arabic,
Very
right?
nice.
So
Nice.
embrace that thought. What you're doing is hard, but you're jumping into it anyway. And you might sound like a clown, but embrace the thought that you sound like a clown. And the more you embrace that thought that you're making mistakes and sound like a clown, those are your opportunities to grow and get even better, right? When you make the mistakes and you realize the mistakes and you learn from those mistakes, what do? You grow and you get even bigger, right? Just like that.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with everybody. I
I
appreciate
don't know
it
if it's
so
wisdom.
much.
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
wisdom. A couple of 2
It's
cents,
wonderful.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you. I
So much,
appreciate
man.
that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank
Very
you
well.
guys for listening to this week's episode of English with a Native podcast. I appreciate it so much. Subscribe if you'd like to improve your English language.
Hit that like button.
Yeah.
Salama.
مع السلامة. Thank you.
Yeah.